Good evening. Thanks for joining us. As kids and parents prepare for the start of school, now just a couple of weeks away, bus companies in our area continue to deal with a shortage of drivers.
In Wisconsin, the number of school bus drivers has decreased by nearly 18% over the past 2 decades. This has led to some schools to have delayed starts, fewer extracurricular activities, and it adds some stress for students and families. To address this, a local lawmaker is now proposing new legislation. Jason Zimmerman has the details. He's live in the newsroom with a first alert update. Jason.
Amy, I spoke with local bus companies this afternoon who are actively recruiting drivers. They tell me it's not just about hiring more people, but about keeping the drivers they already have on the road, and that's something this legislation aims to do. As families prepare for the start of school, many bus companies like Cobison are also getting ready by making sure they have enough drivers to hit the road.
We're always looking for the folks that are looking for that second job or a second career.
This sign outside Cobison's Neenah office also getting the attention of state lawmakers, including Representative Shay Sortwell, who's proposing a bill he hopes will do several things. First, it would allow drivers over 70 to retake their driver's test every 4 years instead of every 2 years. Second, drivers are required to take a yearly physical, but if something is flagged during that appointment, the driver must take a leave of absence until being cleared by the state's medical review board.
The medical board in Madison has to kind of go through that and decide if that's a problem. Well, what we've seen is sometimes that board doesn't meet for months. It only meets quarterly. And so you may, even if it's not an issue, or maybe it's being medically treated and it's not an issue anymore, the driver is out of driving for months.
A third component of the bill expands the types of health care providers that can serve on the medical review board, the physician assistants and advanced practice nurses. Cobison says he supports the changes.
I would say, we've got a good 10-15% that are over 70. And yes, those folks, again, it's just another stressful, they've got to go through that test every year. It's just a hassle. Make an appointment, go and see the doctor kind of thing. So it's an extra hassle that's not necessarily needed.
I've seen some of the people push back on this and say, oh, we're lowering standards, we're making it less safe. I don't think that's accurate once you consider the fact that the annual physical is still in place. We're still having medical professionals make these determinations and sending that information on to Madison. All of the actual oversight and safety is still there.
Sortwell says he hopes the bill will have bipartisan support by the time it's taken up later this fall. Chris and Cammie, back to you.